Welcome to the Code 4 Couples podcast, focusing on topics for law enforcement officers and couples to keep you and your relationship connected, resilient, and Code 4. Now, your host, law enforcement expert Cindy Doyle, author of Hold the Line, and my wife.
Hey there, welcome back to Code 4 Couples. I am Cindy Doyle. I'm a licensed professional counselor, author of Hold the Line, and your host for the Code 4 Couples podcast. Today, I have Joe Rizzuti on. I met Joe at the FOP Wellness Conference, and he was just so fun to talk to. And so I was excited when he offered to come onto the podcast and talk to us. Let me tell you a little bit about Joe. He has quite a bio, so I'll probably skip around a little, but Joe is really an amazing guy. He's a founding member of First Responder Wellness of Merrimack Valley, an organization providing mental health and wellness services and training to first responders in the region. With over 27 years of experience as a retired police officer, Joe has dedicated himself to supporting his brothers and sisters in the first responder community. His deep connection to public service is rooted in a firefighter family and further enriched by his time as a veteran who served on both active duty and with the Massachusetts Army Guard and military police. Joe has had an amazing career. He is also a published author of a book called A Cop Story, where he highlights his story growing up with a learning disability and overcoming challenges of being a police officer. I could go on and on talking about Joe, but Joe, it's more important to talk to Joe than talk about Joe. So Joe, thank you so much for coming on and being a part
Thanks
of the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Great
today.
to see you again, my friend. It was a great conference. I give a shout out to Sherry Martin for the work that she's been doing.
For
It was a lot
sure.
of fun.
Yeah, that conference was good. And it was a group of clinicians that were there that were so passionate. And I really enjoyed that conference. And I know that First Responder Wellness and the organization that you are a part of is a big part of what you like to talk about and impacting the community. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization and what its mission is?
Basically, we started about 2 years ago. Myself and my partner, well, one of my partners, Jay McKeon, we worked together 14 years ago. I was still active as a police officer. I was doing peer support. And when I was forced to retire due to an injury, I had reconnected with Jane. I was doing some training. I was actually doing pro bono work for FOP on the wellness side. And I was working at a facility called the On-Site Academy, which is one of the first facilities in the country to deal with post-traumatic stress for first responders. Dr. Hayden Duggan and his wife, Valerie. Jane had come up to work with me. I was surprised that she would do that. And I was just blown away. I knew her passion. You met her. She's one of the best on the business. And then she introduced me to her partner, Amy Dolan, who's her husband died of occupational cancer as a police officer. And I get two of the best. So for some crazy reason, I went to work for she brought me in to work for the New England Police Benevolent Association, which is the largest police union in New England. And then we decided to go out on our own. And it's been 2 years and we're one of the fastest growing wellness groups in New England. And I am totally blessed. It's not about the money, it's about the mission. And I work with two amazing people. So
I know in talking to you, you're always so passionate about what you're doing and passionate about first responder wellness and specifically around, you have a lot of concerns around the use of alcohol.
Well,
And I know that you've been in recovery for 13 years, over 13 years, I think.
Oh yeah, with the hat, I can't believe it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. When you think about the prevalence of alcohol there's a lot of different aspects that I think, because it's readily acceptable. It's a drug that we use to self-medicate. But then we also I don't know that anybody actually goes to quote unquote choir practice. At least they don't down here in Texas. We go to happy hour. We go get some drinks. We go to a bonfire maybe, but we don't go to choir practice anymore. But I think the culture of going and grabbing some drinks is a big part of it. It's not just that, though, that there's signs and symptoms when we need to look out for when it becomes a problem.
We have to understand the culture. I come on the job when the choir practice, and I open up a lot of my trainings with the movie, The Choir Practice, with the trailer. If anybody hasn't seen, we just lost Joe Wambach, the legendary LAPD sergeant who was an amazing crime writer. He wrote The Choir Boys in 1974. It becomes a movie. If you get, I encourage everybody to see it because that's the agency I was in, and it still exists. But I'm proud to say I see us turning the corner as more people. This is not an anti-alcohol slam. I'll be honest with you. If alcohol came to the table today, it would not be legal. We know that. We know the damage that it does. I've been in recovery. I am a full-blood. I'm an alcoholic. Now, there's a lot of schools on why people become alcoholic. I grew up. I had that inner city environmental. I had a lot of traumas as a child. I reached out for alcohol. It made me feel good, right? That's why we drink it, right? We take substance to change our thought pattern, our feelings. So the research, the individual research that both me and Jane and have done over the last few years, but even for myself, and I've been involved in peer support since 1996. I got trained in the Mitchell model way back then.
Wow.
And what I noticed, and I was an active alcoholic, right? I was a hypocrite until my rock bottom happened when I was reaching outside of my marriage. I was a spouse. I felt the job is addicting. Okay. We also know that the job has addiction qualities. And my partner, Jane, brought that out to me. She goes, the job's addicting. It's the same chemical dump. And she's absolutely right. But it's the same for the firefighter that goes to the work and fire. It's the same for the corrections officer that goes into the fight. The feelings that we have, and we run towards danger. That's how we're built. So we try to replace that. And then also when don't have the tools or the education, I would say my research, 80% of the people that I deal with that come to me with an alcohol issue, or I say substance issue, but primary alcohol, when you peel back I'm a licensed drug and alcohol counselor, and I got all those good certs so the people at these hospitals will talk to me. When you pull back the curtains, it comes down to why are we drinking or why are we using the substance? And it just so happens the substance that our culture told us that was okay. It's okay, the choir practice. I called it the church. We had a Chinese restaurant. And here's the funny story about that Chinese restaurant. Growing up in the city of Revere, which is a colorful, it's a sitcom, it's a crazy place to work. It's right outside of Boston. But as a kid, I used to go to this Chinese restaurant. We used to tell our parents that we were going bowling and get $5. But we're going scorpion bowling. They used to feed us drinks.
Scorpion bowling?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's my Thai scorpion bowls. And they used to feed us underage drinks. I could still remember that being in that bar room and having the cops in the corner that I would later, if it was a church, I became the bishop at the end of my career. And I wanted to be them. It was so cool to see them. But little did I know the damage. The majority of the cops, those police officers, they were hurting. They were there for a reason. And I became that police officer. And I was trained as a peer support, but when I would have a bad call or something go on, we had the keys to the place. We'd have that place going until 4:00 in the morning. That was and then we'd do that hamster wheel. We'd go in, drink, we'd do an overtime or a detail, and it finally caught up to me. And I had people in my career that tried to reach out to me. One guy, I became a chief. I used to make fun of him, and then he was the one that I have now the most respect for because he tried to talk to me. And when you're a fully blown alcoholic, you can't talk to us.
Right.
I got a little sense and I got sober. 80% of the people I see, it's because they're drinking because of something they've seen or some past childhood. And if we can tamp down the addiction and have good people like yourself, that's the whole other mantra. Good culturally competent programs and a culturally competent therapist or people are a good, strong peer to get them to that point. I think we're going in the right direction. I see it.
I know that there is a lot of research around alcohol and first responders. You were talking about trauma and how trauma comes into play. I think some people, actually, I know that probably people listening are like, yeah, I drink, but I'm not an alcoholic. Sure. I can put it down. I can go with, this is a trick, right? I can go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. I can do a dry, what month is this going to be? August. I can do a dry August and not have a problem. But when really is it a problem? When we're thinking about the reason why we're doing it, or is there more to it? How do people know they have a problem?
The test there is, okay, I'm a big harm reduction fan, and harm reduction is, I take a look at how much they're drinking and why they're drinking and what they're drinking and what the substance is. one thing I like to look at, and I'm a 12-step guy, AA works for me, but it doesn't work for everybody. And I think the old school AA people scare people away from getting sober. Or a lot of people just are not alcoholics and they might need to reduce, or they need an education. And that's what I do. If that person you're saying, okay, it's a matter of time, because let's face it, we've all been to that fatal accident where the person had one too many drinks. They never had a problem with alcohol, but they go out because they had a bad day with their family or whatever issue, and they get behind the wheel and they kill somebody. So it's awareness. And the worst thing when you put the alcohol or the toxin into our body, because that's what it is, a solvent, and what it does to our brain, it really distorts our thinking. Other drugs, we legalized cannabis up here, and I'm not promoting cannabis by any means. I'm a fan of CBD. CBD does kill addiction. But here's the thing. What alcohol does, it gives us that false sense of we can do anything. And then that's the danger zone. So you could have that. And I counsel these people all the time. They're exemplary employees. They don't have any jackpots, but they have that one call and they don't reach out to a therapist or don't, because of the stigma, and they get behind the wheel, or they go in and get into a fight and they get themselves in a jackpot. That's the person that I want to reach to say, hey, before you pick up the drink, make sure you're in a safe spot. Or before you pick up that drink or that substance, let's go talk to someone. That's why I think Sherry Martin and the FOP promoting what we're doing at NABPA, promoting the wellness consultations, putting them in front of a cultural competent therapist to say, I get somebody to go talk to. Because I believe this, if they can go to talk to somebody, they're not going to pick up their drink. And the problem with alcohol is you're chasing it. So you're going to go, you build a tolerance. And once you build that tolerance, that's when the problem, that's when I come in, and when now we need a program now where, I lost 4 people last year that give up drinking. And that's the scary thing with alcohol. You can get to that point within a week, 2 weeks, because because the first drink is a sucker drink, right? We all know that. You feel great. It's a stimulant. It's after that when you keep relying on it. And let's face it, we don't want to deal with our pain. Who wants to sit in, I call it the crappy diaper. Who wants to sit in your crappy diaper? But when we deal with first responders, I got a grant of recovery coaching. It's one of the reasons why I spoke down at Nashville on for first responders. And the way me and you talk to our first responders is different than the people at McLean's Hospital. We can't coddle our people. We respond by orders. When most of us paramilitary, if you got to be direct with our members, that's how they know. That's how we operate.
Yep.
And I think with alcohol, I'm picking on alcohol, but alcohol is accepted, like you said. But am I seeing other substances or other vices? Yeah, I'm seeing gambling go to the roof. I'm seeing sex addiction go to the roof. And one thing we never talk about was a relationship person, right? We know about, me and my partner Jane worked on the 3 Bs. The 3 Bs, when it comes to suicide, we were buddies, bucks, right? And we say booze or substances. If you see any of those 3, look up. We did some thumbnail research up at Onsite. We had brought this down to the FOP conference about 4 years ago. And then we researched it in a group up at Onsite. We would say to that group, has anybody had any of these issues? Then we would say, have you had suicidal thoughts or plans? And it's amazing. Out of that group of 6, because it's a small facility group up there, we'd have 3 always think about suicide.
Yeah.
Because once you got the financial, you get the guilt. And what do you do? The substance. And then if your marriage ain't going, your family ain't going right, guess what you do? And you're reaching outside, and that's a drug. Let's be honest. When you find somebody that triggers what you had early on in your relationship, you're looking for that. And when you see those 3 Bs going and you ask those questions, it's almost like I'm still in a vet. I'll always be a cop. My old partner worked with the FBI. I'm a big fan of the old profilers, Jim Reese and Douglas and Wrestler. I got to meet those guys. But all it is a profile. And if we can dial in on that profile and ask those questions, especially with alcohol, because we know right now in Massachusetts, we're leading the country. Unfortunately, I get 15 suicides of police officers here this year. And a lot of them are people that are our union members. And one thing I could tell you, majority of them, it was the alcohol and the firearm. Alcohol, and the VA will back up these statistics. Blue Help, Karen Solomon, some of her work that she's doing, she's amazing. Joe Willis, they will tell you that if we can take that alcohol out of the equation and the firearm. I'm not violating the Second Rights. I'm a gun guy. You're down in Texas. But
Yes.
if we can recognize somebody that's in crisis, we just took a look at this. And one thing we noticed, and for your audience that need to look at, if any of the union members are out there, when you put somebody on administrative leave for possible discipline, or they're out injured, you need to stay in touch with them. You need to get them to a therapist, at least to talk, because they isolate and they self-medicate. The other thing we noticed a big uptick, and we at NEBPA, Director Turco, my president, Chris Ryan, and Jane, is our retirees. We're focusing on our retirees. They're isolating, they're self-medicating, and they're the highest risk of suicide. And we're not even talking about the cancer rate, and we're not talking about the cardio rate that goes along with our business.
Yep.
We're just focusing on one theory.
Yeah.
That's
The boredom that comes with retirement too, like the loss of people, the loss of an identity that goes along with it. And the boredom is something that I see along the way, even in the career, right? You said that the career is made to almost, you want that dopamine hit, you want the
Yes.
hits. And so it makes sense. That's part of what's going on. A lot of spouses listen to this.
Yeah.
What should we look for in either one, right? For our first responder or our non-first responder spouse, what should we be looking for when alcohol becomes a problem?
I love how you said that, because the transference, our stress that we bring home, I've seen that we work with families. And if you're not doing the right thing, you can transfer it to the non-family member, the kids, and the spouses. I do a lot of work with getting family members into treatment. What we look for is, you're going to change. Dr. Gil Martin, the great book that he has written, he talks about the change in public safety, mainly on police. As a spouse, I've been a cop since I was a kid. I was a military cop when I come on the job, right? So this is all I knew, and it was scary for me when I left. What you look for is, you look for the increase of drinking. You look for, when we get away from our hobbies, we start spending too much on a job. That's the big kicker. When you don't want to do anything with the family, and there's some truth to that too. We work crazy schedules, and our time off is very limited, and we need time to de-escalate. And I know with my wife, what the problem is that the family dynamics don't always line up to what my political and personal views. I would rather be around cops and firefighters, which is dangerous when you lose your civilian friends. Dr. Odom talks about it out in First Responder Wellness in California. He's got a beautiful program, 30 days where they deprogram first responders, get them ready to retirement. He makes them go get a non-first responder friend. And I started to look at this with my own agency. And there's something Dr. Coughlin and Dr. Schlesinger talked at the conference, was we focus so much on the people that are not doing the right things. What about focusing on the cops that are doing the right things and taking what they have? So I started to do that. And a couple of my uncles, a retired firefighter, 32 to 42 years, and he was always into camping. He didn't live the job, and he's married over 55 years. And it's awful hard to do, but I think having that work-life balance is huge. So if
Absolutely.
if this is your wheelhouse, right? When we see that go in a big word for me is askew. When you see that go that direction, it's time to call a rehab hospital, but it's just time to have the conversation. Hey, listen, and take a look at it. The worst case scenario is when we have a husband and wife that both drink heavily, and they don't realize it. And then we end up in the domestic issues. But if we can just I think the fire service does it right. I think Sherry Martin's doing it right too, with the power of peers, where we have to go into roll calls. Fire service, their role of peer support is different than the Mitchell model. They go into the fire stations and do station visits, and they give resources. We wait for something to happen. So what we did just recently,
Reactive rather than
so we did. This is a true story. We had an agency up here that had 2 suicides in 2 months. That was one of ours, and I can't tell you how great. I'm so proud of my partner with the work she did on these things. But what we did prior to going into that agency, now we have a union that has a mental health team. I encourage every union out there. I know the FOP is doing it. We're doing it. Hire the best. Have a full-time staff on board. It's the best thing you could do, because they don't want to talk to the agency. The agency can spend a ton of money on mental health, but it's still the agency. They will listen to the union. So now what we did is we said, okay, how can we fix this? So let's go to roll calls. Now, going to roll calls as a retired cop. Now, I just happened to work with a lot of those officers. They came to my agency when they were laid off, and I lost a beautiful guy named Charles Sandin. He was my partner. When I got hurt, he put me in the ambulance. He died of natural causes. So I have a relationship already built with that agency. We started doing roll calls, all the roll calls, AMs, PMs, watches. And we went in there and started saying, hey, this is who we are. Here's our card. Within the first week, I had 10 people reach out to me. So now my business is growing. We're doing a lot of fire services. I work with either Jane or Amy on these contracts. We just went down to one of our other fire agencies. We do the introductions. Same thing's happening. You put the card in front of them. Listen, you can trust us. And I think having a clinician that understands, having a peer there that understands, that's a dented can, somebody not of rank, somebody that gets it. I'm having an issue now in an agency where I have a command staff member that can't mind his own business. And he's causing a lot of problems. That agency, we're funded by the union. And the command staff needs to support us, not get involved in it. Let us do our jobs, and we're more effective that way. There's a lot of...
I keep thinking like that. I know a lot of departments that don't have unions, or cities, municipalities that don't have unions. And that's something that where you are, it's very different. But then when we're talking about smaller departments, or in Texas, we don't have unions. Dallas does. A lot of the departments don't have unions to be able to come in. And I think that direction of, a lot of times the family is the one who's seeing it. The family is the one who's seeing the damage. Or maybe sees the increase. You talked about trauma earlier and how trauma comes into play. And the family's the one who's seeing that at home. And I'm just wondering, when family sees it or when it's being exposed, how do we have that conversation? We can't go, hey, you're a drunk, right? Or
No.
sometimes just saying, hey, you have a problem with alcohol, and denial. We know what denial, there's tons of denial. So how do we have those conversations when we think there is a problem?
And I teach this. It's coming from compassion. It's coming from love. Is to say, a lot of times we keep from our spouses the horror. We don't want to re-traumatize them. Right? But it was surprising how much our spouses want to know about what's going on. And I think, again, you say you don't have unions, but we do have people like yourself. And I think agencies need to find people like yourself. And this is why I love the FOP's portal that they got. But she did, the wellness team there, they made it so easy for us to access quality care. Like, just go on. It doesn't matter if you're a member or not. You go in and we can find the right person that's
absolutely,
that's vetted, and she's going to grade the vetting guide. So I think, first of all, what a member should need to do is every spouse, every academy should know the resources in their district, know who you got, make sure they're cultural competent. I could spend hours talking about some of these scumbag programs that are out there. They're just body snatches. But FOP makes it really easy, because if you see the logo, you know that we've researched them, right?
Wait, can I just stop and say that people listening might not understand what you're saying about the body snatchers?
But it's true.
So
Okay.
I'll just say it, like, part of it is that people see dollars. People see, and I'll tell people that I talk to at times, like, people see dollars, and they see first responders as a way to a population that they can earn money on. And so that's why you're talking about FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, and what they have now is a vetting program for their wellness programs. And they are taking the time to interview these people, to look at their facilities. So you, as somebody in first responder world, or if you're a spouse, an officer, firefighter, that you can, with FOP, it's law enforcement, right? So if you're in law enforcement, you can go and you can look and you can say, hey, this is somebody that is been vetted by the FOP, and it's a standard that we're all trying to get to. I haven't even turned in my application yet, but I need to.
Well, also the fire service. On the fire service, I work a lot with the Center of Excellence, right? And we're very blessed to have Ed Kelly, who's a Boston firefighter that's the president of the International. Amazing individual. You can't get no better than Eddie. And my brother-in-law is LA County Fire. I grew up in the fire service, my uncle and my family. So on the red side, the same thing. If you went to the Center of Excellence and you're in Texas or you're out in the West or wherever you are, you can access them and they will find you the resources. So the two agencies that we've got on the national level, they're making it easy, but we have to get that word by like these podcasts. Hopefully there's somebody listening and say, wait a minute, there might be somebody up the street I don't even know. And or a marriage counselor, because a lot of times it's the job that's doing the damage, not.
Absolutely.
So, and that's why I appreciate you having me on. But yeah, we're trying to make it easier to find those resources. And I have to remember, I'm blessed with the unions. I got to remember throughout the country, you guys don't have the benefit of what we have. And that's why I think these national organizations are trying to do a better job at vetting it for us. But having the conversation, it's never easy. Setting up an intervention is even harder. If you don't have somebody like myself or somebody like our team like you to set up an intervention, and you have one shot to do it. And if you don't have it done right, it's really dangerous for our population. You have to have the right place to go. And there's so much involved in it, but just having the conversation like, hey, what's going on? I care about you. And they're afraid, let's face it, we're afraid of having our gun taken away. We're afraid of being penalized. We're afraid of losing a license. And that's the truth. We have a lot of bad administrators out there that will penalize our people. And we've got to get away from that. We've got to treat addiction the same way we treat our orthopedic injuries. If a firefighter hurts their leg, we don't question about giving them time off. But if they have a mental health injury or an addiction injury, all of a sudden we want to penalize them. And you know what? They're getting scarred because of what they've seen. That's just my take on it.
No, I totally agree with you. And that's the problem. And we always say it's not if, but when. So when you were talking about trauma or the scenes or not sharing what's going on, it's not the if there's going to be a critical incident or if you're going to be impacted. It's when or how you're going to be impacted. And there is a menu of ways that you can be impacted, right? Whether that is anxiety, post-traumatic stress, whether that's an addiction-based issue, it's just a matter of when you're going to be impacted and how to have that conversation. It sounds like it's, like you said, compassion, right? So the compassion is, hey, I'm worried. I'm concerned. It's not an attack. I love that you said what's going on, because I know that our officers are holding back. They think, I don't want to burden my family with what's happening. But if we don't know and you're not letting it out, if you're not talking to somebody, then you're keeping it in and stuffing it and numbing it and however you can numb it, whether that's booze, spending money, other women, right?
Yeah.
All the things. So it's the numbing aspect. Yeah, for sure.
Remember, when we go back to the natural addictions, I talk about the creepy stuff. We have to. We've got a ring now up here, first responders that are all connected with pedophiles. They're pedophiles. They're evil people. But what are they doing? They're chasing that rush. Gambling. You don't have to, it's all natural. And same with the relationship. We have to understand this. And it's like, we don't like to have these conversations, but when we look at the numbers and what's happening in our population, we have to have these conversations. We need to do it pretty quick. The good news is on the national front, the suicide numbers are going down. Up here in Mass, I think it's because we were forced to have a post commission that just doesn't like police officers. And it's causing a lot of problems up here. So
if somebody is concerned for themselves, that they're thinking like, ooh, maybe I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. Maybe I'm leaning on this substance or this behavior, this activity more than I should or need to. Yeah. What's a good question they can ask themselves to check in?
I love that question. I use the mirror question all the time. I say to people, if you woke up tomorrow and that issue that you were dealing with wasn't there, what would your life be like? Give me an idea. If you woke up tomorrow and you see you were overeating or whatever the issue is, and all of a sudden it's gone. And I'll tell you one, you'd be surprised how many people say that would be gone, but my problem would still be there. And that gives me the jump off point to go get them help. That's huge. That's what we want.
Okay.
So that question is called a mirror question.
Yes.
Hey, tomorrow, the alcohol or the gambling was gone. Give me an idea what your life would. Well, I'd have more money. I'd be clearer. They'll give you all the good stuff. And then sometimes they'll say, yeah, but Joe, you know what? my problem will still be there. What are you doing about the problem? And that's where we go. And that's when we start the work.
I love that. And that because that's the root of the issue. So if you ask yourself that question and the problem it comes out, that's when you're saying like, hey, let's go get some help with that. Yeah,
And
for
getting
sure.
the right
What's the first step? I think a lot of people, but yes, getting the right. How do you determine if it's the right help?
again, having a vetted clinician that understands the culture.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
huge.
I wanted to be clear, like what you meant by right,
Yeah.
for sure. Kind of leads to my next question. What is the first step? Is the first step finding a counselor? Is the first step joining a group? I think a lot of people think, oh, I need to go to AA. And then they think of the vulnerability of going to AA.
Yeah.
What's the first step? Find that provider, find somebody that needs help or
The
talk
first
to
step
the
is,
peer support, maybe?
first step is admitting you have a problem. That's the big thing. Okay, we get that. I have a problem.
Mm.
Good place to start is you got to have a safe person to talk to. You got to make sure that, you're talking to somebody that's bound by confidentiality. Usually be somebody not in your agency, or if somebody will point you in that direction. And then researching, taking the time, and this is where the spouses come in. Finding that person, ask questions. How much experience do you have working with first responders? And who do you report to? I'm not a big fan of these EAPs that the cities put aside. I'll tell you, I'm a city kid. I tell you the way it is. I had one agency, they pointed the member to a clinician, and the clinician was more traumatized than the member was because they're just checking.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah, they're checking boxes. So do your due diligence. Even if you're in the rural areas, reach out to the national groups, fire, the international, FOP on the national. Again, you might not have a union, but you do have fraternal, and you have associations. In the International Chiefs of Police, I was a big pain to a lot of chiefs, but the International Chiefs of Police are doing some good work. And I got to give them credit. They are trying.
Yeah, they're really trying. I think there's a lot of support out there. People just need to look to see what it is. If you are listening and you're concerned about yourself or your spouse or somebody that you know, maybe there's a coworker that you have that you're thinking, oh man, I'm seeing some change. Check in with them. First of all, express compassion, express concern. And like Joe's saying, FOP has resources or ask around. There are people in your community that want to help. And if not, reach out to me. Or I'm going to give you Joe's contact information.
Yeah,
You can reach
please.
out to
Absolutely.
Joe as well. Joe, any words of encouragement if people are struggling or if they know people that are struggling, what would you want them to know?
Yeah, hope is real. I know throughout the country, spirituality is a big thing. It's another great place to resource. The local churches, the local ministers, they're a great resource. If you don't trust anybody in your agency, and I understand, if you got a good pastor out there, they're worth their weight in gold in some of these places. But find that person you're comfortable to talk to.
Thank you, sir. How do people get a hold of you?
First Responder Wellness in Merrimack Valley. Again, in some of these programs that are out there, like you said, the vetted programs, you can always reach out to them and they would get you to a good therapist because they work with therapists throughout the country that are vetted. That's another.
Guys, I will put his email down below. He is also linked to another interview that he has done recently, and I'll link that as well. Joe's also given me an article that he has written, and I'll put that down below in the links below, as well as the FOP wellness stuff as well. We'll make sure all those links are in
And
there.
all the proceeds of the book that I wrote goes to the On-Site Academy. So, I donate everything back to the on-site where I work. And again, they're available too. They're a great resource. They're only a week, but we have them from all over the country to come to the on-site. And it's never about financial with them. So it's another good resource for you folks.
That's awesome. Joe, thank you so
Good to
much
see you in Vegas,
for
hopefully,
joining
right?
us. Yeah, maybe I'll be there is that where wellness conference is this year?
Yeah, I'm already signed. I already booked my flight. I can't wait.
Yeah, and if you are part of the wellness team or a peer support team, check out the FOP Wellness Conference. It's an amazing conference. You'll meet a ton of people that are wanting to impact law enforcement, and some of my guests have been there. I saw so many of my guests. I was like, hey, John, all these people that I'd interviewed that were there. Guys, thanks.
John Kelly, he's another Massachusetts guy.
Yeah, John
He grew up
Kelly.
next door to my town next door to me. Great guy.
Guys, don't forget that if you are on your device to like the podcast, share this with somebody that you think would benefit from it. We do this because we want to impact the community, and you sharing this or giving me a review is your way of paying me back for my time too. So until next time, y'all, everybody keep it code 4. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. For more information about the podcast or Cindy, check out code4couples.com. All intellectual property rights owned by CRLD2 Ventures, LLC, are protected by the firm of 9mm, 45 ACP, 5.56mm, and 12 gauge.